The night I first scented him, I was already promised to another man. His wolf smelled like winter pine and scorched earth, nothing like the meadow softness of my intended mate. I shouldn't have been in the neutral woods that bordered our territories, but the engagement celebration had suffocated me with its false smiles and cold politeness. Caden, my fiancé and future alpha of the Silvercrest pack, had barely looked at me all evening. His hand on my waist during the formal dance had felt like a brand of ownership, not affection. So I ran. The forest floor was soft beneath my bare feet, my ceremonial gown torn at the hem from branches I hadn't bothered avoiding. I didn't shift, couldn't risk my wolf being tracked back to the party. I just needed to breathe air that didn't taste like duty and disappointment. That's when I caught his scent on the wind. Every instinct screamed danger. Wrong territory, wrong bloodline. Wrong everything. The Blackthorn pack had been our enemies for 3 generations, ever since the treaty lands were disputed, and blood was spilled on both sides. My father had negotiated this engagement specifically to strengthen our position against them. But my wolf didn't care about politics. She surged forward in my chest, desperate and hungry in a way she'd never been for Caden. I pressed my palm against a tree trunk, trying to steady myself, trying to force her back down. It didn't work. The scent grew stronger. He was close, moving through the trees with a predator's silence. I should have run back to my own territory. Instead, I stepped deeper into the shadows, following the pull like a moth drawn to flame. He emerged from between 2 ancient oaks, and the moonlight caught him full in the face. Dark hair, sharp jaw, eyes that gleamed silver even in human form. Tall enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his gaze. He wore the informal clothes of someone who'd also escaped a formal event. Black shirt rolled to the elbows, revealing forearms corded with muscle and old scars. You're far from home, Silvercrest. His voice was low, rough, like gravel and smoke. I should have been afraid. He could kill me here, and no one would know until morning. Instead, something in my chest cracked open, spilling warmth through my veins. So are you, Blackthorn. His eyes narrowed, tracking over my face with an intensity that made my breath catch. The engagement party. I heard about it. Something dark flickered across his expression. Caden Frost is a fool. You don't even know me. I know you're standing in enemy territory in a torn dress, barefoot, looking at me like you're deciding whether to fight or run. He took 1 step closer, just one, but it closed the distance between us to something dangerous. And I know your wolf is calling to mine right now, and you're trying very hard to pretend she isn't. My hands clenched into fists at my sides. What's your name? Theron. A pause. Theron Blackthorn. Ice slid down my spine. Not just any Blackthorn. The son, the rival heir. The man Caden had sworn to destroy the moment he took power. I opened my mouth to say I had to leave, that this was a mistake, that we could never. I know who you are too, Elara Frost. His voice dropped lower, intimate despite the space between us. The invisible daughter, the one they're trading like currency to secure an alliance. He tilted his head, studying me with those unnerving silver eyes. Tell me something. Did Caden ever ask you what you wanted? The question landed like a blade between my ribs. No, he hadn't. No one had. Theron saw the answer in my face. His jaw tightened. Then maybe you should start deciding for yourself. He turned and disappeared into the forest as silently as he'd arrived, leaving me alone with my racing heart and the terrible, intoxicating truth blooming in my chest. I had just met my mate, and he was the one man whose existence would ignite a war. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in my childhood bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every second of that encounter until the details blurred. His scent still clung to my skin. Impossible, since we hadn't touched. But my wolf insisted it was there. She paced restlessly beneath my human skin, whining for something I couldn't give her. By dawn, I'd convinced myself it was a fluke. Adrenaline, rebellion against an engagement I didn't want. My wolf had latched onto the first dangerous, forbidden thing she'd encountered because I was drowning in a life that felt like a slow death. It wasn't real. It couldn't be real. The mating bond didn't work like that, sudden and fierce and wrong in every logical way. Real mates grew together, recognized each other through time and compatibility. They didn't collide in the dark woods and shatter each other's worlds in 5 minutes. But when I finally dragged myself downstairs for breakfast, my mother took one look at my face and went pale. What happened? Nothing. I poured coffee with shaking hands. I couldn't sleep. She didn't believe me. She crossed the kitchen in 3 strides and gripped my chin, forcing me to meet her eyes. Her nostrils flared as she scented the air around me, and I watched her expression shift from concern to horror. Elara, tell me you didn't go into the woods last night. My silence was answer enough. She released me like I'd burned her, stepping back with her hand pressed to her chest. Who did you see? No one. Don't lie to me. Her voice cracked with panic. I can smell him on you. Foreign pack, dominant bloodline, recent contact. Who was it? I met her gaze and said nothing. Understanding dawned in her eyes, followed immediately by devastation. Oh, Elara. No. Please tell me it wasn't. It doesn't matter. I set down my coffee cup carefully, fighting to keep my voice level. Nothing happened. I came home. It's over. Your wolf will learn to accept Caden. My mother's laugh was bitter and broken. That's not how this works, and you know it. If you've found your true mate, forcing a bond with Caden will destroy you both. The rejected mate bond fractures. It poisons everything it touches. Then I won't tell him. I force steel into my spine, into my voice. I'll complete the engagement. I'll do what's expected, and I'll forget about last night. You can't forget your mate, Elara. The bond doesn't fade just because you ignore it. It grows stronger, more painful, until one day you'll wake up and realize you've built your entire life around a lie, and the person you're trying to love can feel it every single day. Her words hung in the air between us, heavy with a truth I wasn't ready to face. Before I could respond, my father's voice echoed from the hallway. Is she awake? Caden's here. He wants to take her riding before the territory inspection. My mother held my gaze for one more desperate second, then composed her features into a pleasant mask. She'll be right out. I changed into riding clothes mechanically, braided my hair with numb fingers, descended the stairs to where Caden waited in the foyer. He looked perfect as always. Golden hair, strong jaw, the easy confidence of a man who'd never been denied anything. He smiled when he saw me. It didn't reach his eyes. Ready? I nodded, not trusting my voice. We rode in silence through Silvercrest territory, his horse keeping pace with mine as we followed the patrol trails. Caden pointed out recent improvements to the border defenses, discussed security protocols, outlined his plans for strengthening our position against Blackthorn aggression. He never once asked how I was feeling about the wedding. 2 hours in, we stopped at a clearing overlooking the valley. Caden dismounted and offered me his hand. I took it because refusing would have raised questions I couldn't answer. I want to show you something, he said. He led me to the edge of the overlook, where a stone marker jutted from the earth, ancient symbols carved into weathered granite. This is where my great-grandfather killed Theron Blackthorn's great-grandfather. Caden's voice carried pride, not regret. The last time they tried to take treaty lands from us, we drove them back and made sure they'd never forget the cost of crossing us. My stomach turned. After we're married, I'm going to finish what he started. Caden turned to me, his expression hardening with purpose. The Blackthorns have been a stain on these territories for too long. Once I'm alpha and our alliance is secured, I'm going to wipe them out completely. No more treaties, no more negotiations. He said it like he was offering me a gift. You're talking about genocide. I'm talking about securing our future. His hand found my waist, pulling me closer. About making sure our children never have to look over their shoulders. Isn't that what you want? What I wanted was standing in enemy territory with silver eyes and a voice that made my wolf sing. What I wanted was forbidden, impossible, and getting more dangerous with every second I stood here pretending. I pulled away from Caden gently, careful not to show the revulsion crawling under my skin. I should get back. I promised my mother I'd help with wedding preparations. Disappointment flickered across his face. Not because he wanted my company, but because I'd rejected his vision of our shared future. Still, he nodded and helped me back onto my horse. We rode home in continued silence. That night, I dreamed of winter pine and scorched earth, of silver eyes watching me from the shadows, of a voice asking me what I wanted as if my answer actually mattered. I woke with tears on my face and the certainty that I was about to make a choice that would shatter everything. 3 days later, I went back to the woods. I told myself I just needed closure. One conversation to explain why we couldn't pursue this. Why the bond between us had to remain unacknowledged. I'd say what needed to be said, then return to my life and force myself to forget. That's what I told myself. But my wolf knew the truth. She'd been clawing at my inside since that first meeting, desperate and starving for something only Theron could give. And I was so tired of denying her, so tired of denying myself. I found him in the same clearing, as if he'd been waiting. "Took you long enough," he said without turning around. "This is a mistake." "Probably." He finally looked at me, and the intensity in his gaze stole my breath. "But you came anyway." "I came to tell you we can't do this. The engagement is in 2 weeks. Caden's planning to attack your pack after we're married. If anyone finds out about us, they won't. You don't know that. Then let them find out." Theron crossed the distance between us in 2 strides, stopping just close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his skin. "Let them see what happens when they try to force mates apart. Let them watch their precious alliance crumble. People will die, Theron. Your pack. My pack. Everyone caught between us. They're already planning death, Elara. Caden just told you himself. He's going to wipe out my entire bloodline. You think playing along with this engagement is going to save anyone?" His voice dropped, rough with barely contained emotion. "Or is it just going to make you complicit in genocide, while your mate bond tears you apart from the inside?" I flinched. He was right, and I hated him for it. What am I supposed to do? Run away with you? Start a war deliberately instead of accidentally? No. He reached up slowly, giving me time to pull away, and brushed a strand of hair from my face. The contact sent electricity racing down my spine. "You're supposed to give yourself permission to want something other than what they've decided for you. You're supposed to stop pretending your happiness doesn't matter. And you're supposed to trust that maybe, there's a way through this that doesn't end in total destruction. You're asking me to believe in fairy tales. I'm asking you to believe in us." The words hung between us, fragile and fierce. I should have said no, should have walked away, should have chosen duty over desire like every responsible wolf in my position would have done. Instead, I leaned into his touch and whispered, "I don't even know you. Then let me fix that." Theron's thumb traced my cheekbone with devastating gentleness. "Meet me here, tomorrow night, and the night after, however many nights it takes until you know exactly who I am and what I'm offering. Then decide." "And if I decide I can't do this?" Pain flickered across his face, quickly masked. "Then I'll let you go. I won't chase you. won't force the bond, won't do anything that makes your choice harder than it already is. He paused. But I think you already know what you want, Elara. You just need permission to choose it. He was right. I'd known since the moment I first scented him. Tomorrow night, I agreed, my voice barely a whisper. His answering smile was worth the risk of everything I was about to lose. Over the next week, I lived 2 lives. During the day, I played the role of dutiful bride-to-be. I attended dress fittings and approved floral arrangements. I smiled through engagement dinners and nodded along as Caden described his vision for our future, a future that looked remarkably like my present, only with me more thoroughly trapped. At night, I belonged to Theron. We met in the woods after moonrise, when both packs were settled and patrols less frequent. Sometimes we talked for hours, about pack politics and family expectations, about the weight of legacy and the prison of duty. Sometimes we barely spoke at all, just walked through the forest in comfortable silence, while our wolves circled each other in recognition and longing. He told me about his childhood, raised to hate my family name while secretly questioning whether the generations-old grudge still made sense. I told him about mine, trained to be invisible and agreeable, valued only for the alliance my womb could provide. They never even asked what I wanted to study, I admitted one night, sitting beside him on a fallen log. Just assumed I'd marry young and produce heirs. When I mentioned maybe going to the university in the capital, my father laughed like I'd told a joke. Theron's jaw tightened. What did you want to study? History. Specifically pact treaties and alliance formation. I thought maybe if I understood how these feuds started, I could help end them. I laughed bitterly. Ironic, isn't it? Now I'm the treaty. You're not a treaty, Elara. You're a person. And you're brilliant, and you deserve better than being traded like property to a man who doesn't see you. The conviction in his voice cracked something open inside me. Why do you see me? I asked quietly. We're supposed to be enemies. You should hate me on principle. I tried. His mouth quirked in a rueful smile. For about 30 seconds that first night. Then you looked at me like you were deciding whether to fight or run, and I realized I wanted you to do neither. I wanted you to stay. He turned to face me fully, silver eyes serious. I see you because you're impossible to miss, Elara. You walk into a room trying to make yourself smaller, but there's this fire in you that refuses to be dimmed. And everyone around you is so busy trying to contain it that they can't see it's the best thing about you. No one had ever spoken to me like that, like I mattered, like I was more than a womb and a bloodline, like the parts of me I'd learned to hide were actually worth celebrating. I kissed him before I could talk myself out of it. His surprise lasted half a second before he responded, one hand coming up to cup the back of my head, while the other settled at my waist, pulling me closer. The bond roared to life between us, not the gentle recognition of compatible wolves, but a wildfire that consumed everything in its path. This was what the stories meant when they talked about true mates. This fierce, undeniable rightness that made everything else fade to background noise. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Theron pressed his forehead to mine. We can't keep doing this, he said roughly, meeting in secret, pretending during the day. It's going to tear you apart. I know. So we need to decide, really decide. Do we run? Do we fight? Do we try to negotiate with people who've spent generations hating each other? His hands framed my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. Or do you go through with the engagement, and we both spend the rest of our lives wondering what could have been? None of those options end well. Maybe not. But at least the first 3 we'd face together. Together. The word settled into my chest like a promise. The engagement party is in 3 days, I said slowly. If we're going to do something, it has to be before then, Once the formal bonds are announced to both packs, breaking them becomes an act of war, Theron finished grimly. We sat in heavy silence, the weight of impossible choices pressing down on us. Finally, I spoke. What if there was a way to break the cycle? Not just for us, but for everyone. An idea was forming, dangerous and fragile. The feud started over disputed territory. What if we gave it back? Theron frowned. The treaty lands? Elara, both packs have claimed them for decades. Giving them up now would be seen as weakness. Not giving them up, sharing them, creating neutral ground where both packs can hunt, where mixed councils can meet, where the next generation can learn we don't have to be enemies. I turned to him, urgency building in my chest. You and I, we're proof that the old hatreds don't have to define us. What if we use that? What if we proposed a new treaty, one built on cooperation instead of conquest? They'd never accept it. They might, if we gave them no choice. I gripped his hand. If we revealed the mate bond publicly, stood before both packs and demanded they choose, continue a war that serves no one, or accept that maybe there's a better way forward. Theron stared at me like I'd suggested jumping off a cliff, which, essentially, I had. That's incredibly dangerous, he said carefully. I know. They could reject us both, cast us out, or worse. I know. You'd lose everything, your family, your pack, your home. I met his silver eyes and let him see the truth. I've already lost everything that matters if I marry Caden. At least this way, I'm choosing how I fall. Slowly, a fierce smile spread across Theron's face. You're absolutely fearless, you know that? I'm terrified. Same thing sometimes. He kissed me again, softer this time. Okay, let's do it. Let's burn the whole world down and see what grows from the ashes. We spent the rest of that night planning our rebellion. The engagement party was held in the great hall of Silvercrest Manor, packed with wolves from both allied and neutral packs. Caden had spared no expense. Crystal chandeliers, imported wine, a string quartet playing soft music while people mingled and pretended centuries of bloodshed could be forgotten over cocktails. I wore the dress they'd chosen for me. Ice blue silk, off the shoulder, fitted through the waist before flowing to the floor. My hair was pinned up with silver clasps, my throat bare except for the Silvercrest pendant my mother had fastened there that morning. I looked like a bride. I felt like a sacrifice. Caden found me within minutes, possessive hand settling at the small of my back as he steered me through the crowd. Introductions blurred together. Alpha this, Luna that. Important wolves whose names I was supposed to remember and whose approval I was supposed to court. None of it mattered. I was counting down the minutes until Theron arrived. We'd agreed on a signal. He'd enter through the main doors exactly 1 hour after sunset, and I'd meet him in the center of the hall. What happened next would depend on how quickly we could get both alphas to listen before fists started flying. The hour approached with agonizing slowness. Caden pulled me aside as the sun dipped below the horizon, his expression unusually serious. I have something for you. He produced a small velvet box from his jacket pocket. My stomach dropped. It's tradition to exchange tokens before the formal bonding, he explained, opening the box to reveal a delicate gold chain with a single diamond pendant. This belonged to my grandmother. She wore it when she bonded with my grandfather. He reached for the Silvercrest pendant at my throat. Caden, wait. But he was already unfastening it, setting it aside to replace it with his family's heirloom. The gold felt heavy and cold against my skin, nothing like the warm weight of my own pack's symbol. Perfect, Caden said, stepping back to admire his work. Now everyone will know you're mine. The words made my wolf snarl. Before I could respond, a commotion erupted near the entrance, voices raised in confusion and alarm. The crowd shifted, parting like water, and I saw him, Theron Blackthorn, standing in the doorway of my engagement party, dressed in formal black with his pack's insignia stark against his chest. 3 of his lieutenants flanked him, a show of force that made every Silvercrest wolf in the room tense. The music stopped. My father appeared from the crowd, face purple with rage. "How dare you show your face here? You weren't invited." "I'm aware." Theron's voice carried through the sudden silence, calm and unmistakably dominant. "I came to make a claim that supersedes your invitation." Caden's hand tightened on my waist, claws beginning to emerge. "Get out, Blackthorn, before I throw you out." "You can try." Theron's silver eyes found mine across the room. "But first, you should know your fiancée is my true mate, and I'm not leaving without her." The hall exploded. Chaos descended in seconds. Silvercrest wolves surged forward, ready to attack. Theron's lieutenants shifted into defensive positions. My father roared for order. Caden's claws fully extended, tearing through the back of my dress as he spun me behind him. "He's lying," Caden snarled. "This is a Blackthorn trick to disrupt the alliance." "It's not a trick." I stepped out from behind him, forcing my voice to carry despite my racing heart. "He's telling the truth. Theron is my mate." The silence that followed was deafening. My mother's face crumpled. My father looked like I'd stabbed him. Caden went very, very still, his expression shifting from rage to something far more dangerous, betrayal laced with humiliation. "How long?" His voice was quiet, deadly. "Does it matter?" "How long?" "I met him 2 weeks ago. We've been—" I swallowed hard. "We've been meeting in the woods, trying to figure out what to do." "What to do?" Caden repeated slowly. "You mean how to betray your pack, how to spit on everything we've built, how to destroy the alliance that was supposed to protect us from animals like him." "The alliance was supposed to protect you," I shot back, finding my spine. "I was just the price you were willing to pay. You never once asked if I wanted this, never asked if I loved you, never treated me like anything more than a political tool. Because that's what you are." Caden's control snapped. "You're a Silvercrest daughter. Your job is to serve your pack, not run off with the enemy because of some supposed bond." "It's not supposed. It's real." Theron's voice cut through the tension. He'd moved closer during the confrontation, now standing just a few feet away. "And if you'd paid any attention to her beyond her usefulness, you would have noticed she's been miserable this entire engagement." "You don't get to speak about her," Caden growled. "You don't get to be in the same room as her. You're Blackthorn filth, and the only thing you've ever brought to these territories is death." That's rich coming from the man who just told her he planned to commit genocide. My father stepped between them before fists could fly. "Enough. Both of you." He turned to me, and I'd never seen him look so old. "Elara, is this true? Is he really your mate?" I met my father's eyes and nodded. The devastation on his face nearly broke me. "Then you've doomed us all." He looked to Caden. "The agreement was contingent on the bonding. If she refuses—" "She doesn't refuse," Caden interrupted coldly. "True mate or not, she made a commitment. She'll honor it, or her entire family will pay the price of her betrayal." Ice slid through my veins. "You're threatening my family?" "I'm reminding you of the terms. Your father borrowed heavily to fund border defenses, using the alliance as collateral. If you break the engagement, those debts come due immediately. Your pack will be financially ruined, vulnerable, easy prey for anyone who wants to take a bite." His smile was cruel. "And we both know who'll be first in line." He meant Theron's pack. The trap closed around me with devastating clarity. I could choose my mate and destroy my family. Or I could sacrifice myself and live with the agony of a rejected bond for the rest of my life. There was no good option. Theron must have seen the defeat creeping across my face, Because he stepped forward, voice ringing with authority. What if there was a third option? One that doesn't require Elara to choose between her mate and her pack? My father's eyes narrowed. I'm listening. The treaty lands. The territory both our packs have fought over for generations. Theron pulled a rolled document from his jacket. I'm proposing we make them permanently neutral ground. Open to both packs for hunting and gathering, governed by a joint council, with strict penalties for anyone who breaks the peace. In exchange, my pack will cover the Silvercrest debts and extend a new alliance, one built on cooperation rather than submission. Stunned silence. Caden laughed, sharp and bitter. You expect us to believe you'd just hand over contested territory and pay our debts out of the goodness of your heart? No. I expect you to recognize that continuing this feud serves no one. Our packs have been bleeding each other dry for 3 generations over land neither of us can fully use. Meanwhile, larger packs in the north are expanding, and we're too busy fighting each other to notice. Theron's gaze swept the room. Separately, we're vulnerable. Together, we could actually build something that lasts. My father took the document, scanning it with practiced eyes. I watched emotions war across his face. Suspicion, hope, calculation, fear. Finally, he looked up. This proposal would require approval from both alphas and a majority pack vote. It's not something we can decide tonight. I'm not asking you to decide tonight, Theron said. I'm asking you to consider it, to give Elara and me time to prove that cooperation is possible, that true mates from rival packs don't have to mean war, they can mean peace. Caden scoffed. You're insane if you think... I think it's worth discussing. My father's words shocked everyone, including me. He turned to Caden. The debts are real. The threats from the north are real. And however this happened, Elara and Theron's bond is real. We can either let that destroy us, or we can figure out how to use it to build something better. You're actually considering this, Caden said flatly. I'm considering keeping my pack alive, which is my job as alpha, even when it's not what I wanted. My father looked at me, something like apology in his eyes. I should have asked you what you wanted, Elara. I should have made sure you had a choice. I'm sorry I didn't. The words I'd waited years to hear. They came too late, but they still mattered. Caden's face twisted with fury. If you do this, if you accept Blackthorn help and break our engagement, the other allied packs will see it as weakness. They'll withdraw their support. You'll be isolated. Or they'll see it as innovative diplomacy, my father countered. Either way, it's better than bankruptcy and bloodshed. Caden looked at me one last time, and what I saw in his eyes wasn't love or even anger, just cold assessment, recognizing a resource that had slipped through his fingers. You deserve each other, he said quietly. Then he turned and walked out, his supporters following in his wake. The remaining wolves began to murmur, the hall splitting into factions, those who saw opportunity in the proposal, and those who saw betrayal. Theron crossed to my side, close enough that our arms brushed. The bond sang at the contact, relief and recognition flooding through both of us. That went better than expected, he murmured. Half the pack wants to kill you, and Caden just became a lifelong enemy. Like I said, better than expected. His hand found mine, fingers lacing together where everyone could see. You okay? I looked around the hall, at my father already deep in discussion with Theron's lieutenants, at my mother crying quietly in the corner, at the faces of wolves I'd known my entire life now looking at me like a stranger. No, I admitted, but I will be. Because for the first time in my life, I'd chosen something for myself. And whatever came next, at least I'd face it standing beside the person who actually saw me. The next 2 weeks were a political nightmare. My father and Theron's father, a gruff, scarred alpha named Rowan who'd been fighting Silvercrest his entire life, met daily to negotiate terms. The Treaty Lands proposal expanded into a broader alliance framework, complete with trade agreements, joint patrol schedules, and provisions for dispute resolution. Not everyone was happy about it. A faction of Silvercrest wolves, led by my uncle, argued that accepting Blackthorn help was equivalent to surrender. They wanted my father to refuse the proposal, break the engagement himself, and deal with the financial consequences rather than selling out to the enemy. On the Blackthorn side, older wolves who'd lost family in previous conflicts protested Theron's decision to tie their pack's resources to Silvercrest recovery. They saw it as rewarding weakness and forgetting the blood that had been spilled. Both packs teetered on the edge of civil war. And in the middle of it all, Theron and I tried to build something that looked like a relationship. We couldn't meet in the woods anymore. Too risky, too symbolic of secret dealings. Instead, we saw each other during official negotiations, surrounded by suspicious eyes and political tension. Every conversation was monitored, every gesture analyzed for hidden meaning. It was exhausting. "I miss when it was just us," I admitted one evening. We'd stolen a few minutes alone in my father's study, while the alphas argued in the next room. Before all this became about treaties and alliances, Theron pulled me close, tucking my head under his chin. "Me too. But this is the price of doing it right. If we'd just run away together, we'd have had each other but lost everything else. This way is messier, but at least we're trying to build something that lasts. What if it doesn't work? What if the packs reject the proposal and we end up right back where we started? Then we'll figure out plan B." He pressed a kiss to my forehead. "I'm not losing you, Elara, whatever it takes." The certainty in his voice settled something restless in my chest. That night, both packs held their votes. The Silvercrest vote was close. 52% in favor, 48% against. Enough to pass, but barely. My father looked exhausted as he announced the results, already knowing that nearly half his pack would view this decision as betrayal. The Blackthorn vote was more decisive, 67% in favor. Theron's passionate speech about building a future instead of living in the past had swayed enough wolves to create a solid majority. The treaty would go forward, and that meant Theron and I were officially, publicly, politically accepted as mates. We held a small bonding ceremony 2 days later, nothing like the grand engagement party Caden had planned. Just close family and pack leadership, standing in the newly designated neutral territory as the sun set. Theron marked me first, a claiming bite at the junction of my neck and shoulder that sent the bond roaring through both of us with devastating intensity. The pain was sharp and bright, chased immediately by pleasure so intense my knees buckled. He caught me, holding me steady as the mark sealed, and my wolf finally settled into place. Then I marked him, teeth finding the same spot on his neck, tasting copper and feeling his wolf surge to meet mine. His hands tightened on my waist, and I felt the exact moment the bond clicked fully into place. Not just physical, but emotional, spiritual. A connection that would last until one of us died. When we pulled apart, both breathing hard, the small gathering erupted in cautious applause. My father stepped forward first, clasping Theron's shoulder in a gesture of acceptance. "Welcome to the family. Don't make me regret this." Theron's father approached me next, his scarred face unreadable. Then he smiled, a small, genuine expression that transformed his features. "My son chose well. Thank you for giving us a reason to stop fighting." My mother cried through the whole thing. That night, Theron and I finally had time alone. He'd claimed a cabin on the neutral territory border, close enough to both packs, isolated enough for privacy. We made it 3 steps inside before I pulled him down for a kiss. This time there was no audience, no political implications, no need to hold back. The bond guided us through touch and taste, showing us exactly how to fit together. Theron was gentle despite his strength, checking in constantly, making sure I wanted this as much as he did. I'd never wanted anything more. Afterward, lying tangled together in sheets that smelled like both of us, Theron traced the mark on my shoulder with reverent fingers. I was serious, you know, he said quietly. That first night, when you asked why I saw you. Tell me again. Because you're impossible to miss. Because you walked into that clearing looking like you were ready to fight the world, and all I wanted was to stand beside you while you did it. He kissed the mark, sending shivers down my spine. Because my wolf knew before I did that you were exactly what I'd been searching for, even when I didn't know I was searching. I turned in his arms, needing to see his face. I thought I was going to die in that engagement. Just fade away into being someone's wife, someone's vessel, someone's political statement. And then you asked me what I wanted, like my answer actually mattered. It did matter. It does matter. His hand cupped my face. You get to choose your life now, Elara. Not just with me, but everything. What you study, where you go, what you do with your time. You're not a treaty anymore. The promise in those words settled into my bones. I want to work on the Joint Council, I said. I want to help build the systems that make this alliance actually function. I want to prove that cooperation is stronger than conquest. Theron's smile was brilliant. Then that's exactly what you'll do. We fell asleep wrapped around each other, the bond humming contentedly between us. Two wolves who'd been enemies finding peace in the most unlikely place. The first year was hard. The alliance held, but barely. Skirmishes broke out along the borders, wolves from both sides who couldn't let go of old grudges. The joint council meetings often devolved into shouting matches. Resources were tight as both packs adjusted to new trade routes and economic arrangements. And through it all, Theron and I were the visible symbol of everything people either loved or hated about the new order. We received death threats, both of us regularly, anonymous letters describing in graphic detail what various wolves planned to do to us for betraying our bloodlines. My mother hired extra security. Theron's father assigned permanent guards. We kept working. I threw myself into the Joint Council, learning everything I could about treaty law, resource management, and conflict resolution. Theron focused on the joint patrols, training wolves from both packs to work together instead of against each other. Slowly, painfully, things began to shift. The first breakthrough came 6 months in, when a group of Silvercrest pups got lost in the treaty lands, and a Blackthorn patrol found them. Instead of hostage-taking or territorial posturing, the patrol leader, one of the wolves who'd voted against the alliance, carried the pups home personally and stayed for dinner. Word spread. More small collaborations followed. A Blackthorn healer helped during a Silvercrest illness outbreak. A Silvercrest craftsman repaired damage to a Blackthorn building. Wolves who'd spent generations hating each other started having actual conversations. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't fast. But it was progress. The second breakthrough came when Caden tried to form an opposition coalition. He'd spent months after the broken engagement, gathering allies among the packs who viewed the Silvercrest Blackthorn alliance as weakness. His plan was simple: economic pressure and social isolation, until both packs had no choice but to abandon the treaty and return to traditional power structures. It might have worked, except for one detail. The alliance had made both packs stronger, not weaker. The treaty lands provided resources neither pack could access alone. The joint patrols covered more territory with less effort. The trade agreements brought in goods and income that benefited everyone. The wolves Caden was trying to recruit could see the results. When he finally called a gathering to formalize the opposition coalition, fewer than a dozen wolves showed up. His grand vision of restored tradition and proper order fell apart before it could begin. I heard about it from my father, who looked more satisfied than I'd seen him in months. Caden made the same mistake he always makes, he said. He assumed everyone else values pride over prosperity. Turns out most wolves care more about whether their families are fed and safe than about which pack their alpha's daughter chose to bond with. Is he going to be a problem going forward? Probably, but a manageable one. My father studied me across his desk. "You've done good work on the Joint Council, Elara. I'm proud of you." The words I'd waited a lifetime to hear. They still felt surreal. 2 years after the bonding, I stood in the center of the treaty lands, addressing a gathering of both packs. The occasion was the official dedication of the new council hall, a building designed and constructed by wolves from both Silvercrest and Blackthorn, sitting exactly on the border between territories. My father and Rowan stood on either side of me, a show of united leadership. Theron waited in the crowd, silver eyes encouraging. I'd spent weeks preparing this speech. 3 years ago, I stood in a different hall, preparing to sacrifice my future for the good of my pack. I began. I thought that was what duty looked like, erasing yourself to serve a greater purpose, accepting what others decided for you because you weren't important enough to choose for yourself. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I was wrong. Not about duty, that's still important, but about what it means to serve your pack. Real service isn't silent suffering. It's not accepting cruelty or injustice or systems that diminish you. Real service is fighting for something better, even when it's terrifying. Even when everyone tells you it won't work. I gestured to the building behind me. This hall represents that fight. It represents wolves from 2 packs who've hated each other for generations, choosing to work together instead. It represents the radical idea that we don't have to keep bleeding over the same old wounds, that we can build something new. My eyes found Theron's in the crowd. When I met my mate, I thought it meant choosing between him and my pack, between love and duty, between my happiness and my family's survival. I paused, letting the words settle. But that was never the real choice. The real choice was between accepting the world as it was or fighting to make it into what it could be. I raised my voice, making sure every wolf could hear. We chose to fight. And yes, it's been hard. Yes, we've lost wolves who couldn't accept the change. Yes, there are still those who want us to fail. I looked directly at the section where I knew opposition wolves were gathered. But look around. Look at what we've built together. Look at the pups from both packs playing in neutral territory without fear. Look at the elders who don't have to spend their final years planning for the next battle. Look at the resources we're sharing, the problems we're solving together, the future we're creating. I took a breath. This alliance was born from a mate bond that everyone said was impossible. And maybe that's fitting. Because the best things, the things worth having, are usually the ones people tell you can't exist. This hall stands as proof that they're wrong, that wolves who were enemies can become allies, that cooperation is stronger than conquest, that we get to choose what kind of world we live in. The crowd was silent now, listening. So I'm asking you to keep choosing, keep building, keep believing that the treaty we've made is just the beginning, not the end. Keep proving that the bonds we forge in peace are stronger than the ones we forged in war. I stepped back, heart pounding. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Theron started clapping. Slowly, powerfully, the sound echoing through the clearing. Others joined in. First Theron's lieutenants, then my father, then Rowan, then more and more wolves from both packs until the applause became deafening. Not everyone was clapping. I could see wolves standing with arms crossed, faces hard with disapproval, but more were applauding than weren't. And that was enough. 5 years after the bonding, Theron and I stood in that same clearing with our daughter. She was 3 weeks old, perfect and tiny, with my dark hair and Theron's silver eyes. Both packs had celebrated her birth, the first child born to united leadership, carrying bloodlines from Silvercrest and Blackthorn equally. The symbolic weight was enormous. The personal weight was bigger. She's going to grow up in a world we built, Theron said softly, rocking her gently. She'll never know what it was like when our packs were enemies, when mates from different territories meant war instead of hope. I leaned against his shoulder, watching our daughter sleep. Do you think she'll understand how close we came to losing all of this? How easily it could have gone a different way? Maybe when she's older. For now, I'm grateful she gets to just be a kid. No political weight, no expectations, just loved. Just loved, I repeated, tasting the words. That's what this had all been for, really. The right to be loved as ourselves, not as tools or symbols or vessels for someone else's agenda. The right to choose who we loved and how we lived. The right to build something better than what we'd inherited. Our daughter stirred, making a small noise of complaint. Theron handed her to me, and she settled immediately, tiny fist gripping my finger with surprising strength. Your grandmother wanted to know if we'd decided on a name yet, Theron said. We had. We'd been debating it for weeks, trying to find something that honored both our histories without being weighted down by them. Aria, I said, testing the sound. It means air. Freedom. Something that belongs to everyone and no one. Theron smiled. Aria Blackthorn Frost. I like it. We stood there as the sun set over the treaty lands, 3 wolves who represented a future that shouldn't have been possible, but was. Because sometimes, the most radical act is simply choosing to love someone you're supposed to hate, and refusing to let anyone tell you that choice will destroy the world. Sometimes, it saves it instead. If this story showed you that true strength isn't in following the path set for you, but in having the courage to choose your own, even when it's terrifying, I'd love to hear which moment hit you hardest. Was it Elara's first meeting with Theron in the Forbidden Woods? The public revelation at the engagement party? Or maybe that final image of their daughter, representing a future built on choice instead of duty? Drop a comment below telling me which scene gave you chills, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories about wolves who refuse to be tamed, mates who rewrite destiny, and the kind of love that doesn't just survive. It transforms everything it touches.